So in this video, we're going to be talking about audio setups, namely my audio setup. And what that largely consists of is a single stream PC, a mixer that I used for analog real-time monitoring, and then everything else is actually routed through my streaming software, which is Streamlabs OBS. Now, the goals for my audio setup were so that I can independently monitor my audio in real time for my game, my microphone, my desktop, a second PC, all the while keeping everything separate from what's going out on stream. I didn't want to use software sliders so that I had to manage anything, click out of a game and change those settings while trying to maintain what's going on in chat. Basically, what I wanted is an analog solution for what I'm listening to and leave stream alone. Because for the most part, I don't really have to touch any of those settings. So we're going to dive into how I was able to accomplish that on a single PC setup. But first, this stream is sponsored by me. So come follow me on Twitch, where I'm streaming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting at 9:30 p.m. Pacific time, where we can keep the conversation going about technology, streaming, and pretty much anything else that actually happens in chat. You can follow that in the link down below. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into this. So the main components for my audio setup include this Yeti blackout mic, as well as a Yamaha MG10XU mixer. And that's really it. Everything else is actually coming out of an output from either my Xbox or my PC or my second PC or the microphone itself. And it's all brought through the mixer, and then everything else is actually captured straight on the computer. So one of my goals, as I mentioned earlier, was so that I could dynamically change very quickly just by leaning over and grabbing a knob and turning it down what I'm listening to during stream, because I may want to turn down the music really quick, or I want to turn up the game if I'm actually playing PvP, or maybe I need to get a little bit more feedback in from my microphone so I could hear myself, because I am using the Beyerdynamic DT 770 Studios, which are closed back. So I know most people like the 990s, which are the open back, but to be honest, I actually like the closed back. It cancels out a little bit of the room noise, and it gives it a deeper, richer kind of tone that I like. So first off, I'm going to break down exactly how I have everything routed and configured from a hardware standpoint. The audio cable routing, how am I getting the microphone split into both the mixer as well as Xbox chat and into the PC, and how am I getting that feedback coming all back into the mixer as well as going output to stream real time. I'm also going to touch on audio filtering and what I use for active noise cancellation, as well as gating, compression, and all the standard plugins that you'd typically filter your audio through. There are some alternative solutions instead of just going with plugins directly inside of OBS, and we'll take a look at what those are as well. Then we'll take a look at the software side of things and how I'm actually managing my audio in scenes. How am I breaking out all those different channels and managing those independently in Streamlabs OBS? And then at the end, we'll take a look at what some of the alternative options are, whether that's software only, a software hardware combo, and the general pricing of what this costs and what you get for it versus what some of those other solutions are. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what that looks like. Now, once again, my goals for my audio solution were so that I can independently monitor in real time everything that's actually happening from game, microphone, PC, second PC, all in my headset, completely independent of what's going out to stream. And from there, I can actually monitor and change that and adjust the volume of each of those channels directly here on my mixer. So during stream, I don't have to click out of the game, go into some software, adjust a slider. I literally can just reach over, spin a knob, and turn things down. So to do that, my solution was to get the Yamaha MG10XU. And so I keep looking over here because I have it right here on my desk. And so there's essentially four main inputs that are coming into that mixer. The first is the Yeti mic that you see here. And the way that I'm doing that, I actually have the USB coming out of the Yeti mic going into the computer as normal. But out of the auxiliary port, I have a second cable that runs and is split. Now, the split is because I also want to use the mic for not only stream, but also for my Xbox chat. So when I was playing Xbox a lot and you want to be in chat, well, that has to actually go through the controller here, right? So to get into the controller, it has to go in through the auxiliary port that you actually have here on the bottom. Now to do that, you can actually take the auxiliary output out of the Yeti and go directly into the Xbox. But because I also wanted to monitor it, I put a splitter on that and actually ran that into one of the microphone inputs on the mixer. So I do have that on an independent channel, so I get the feedback back into my Bear Dynamic headphones. Now, I do have a laptop that I use as my second computer that I'm actually listening to things on the side. Sometimes I'll pull up another stream if I'm going to raid somebody and I want to see what they're doing first, or if I just have something else that I'm watching on the side while I'm gaming, whether that's, you know, a YouTube video or music, what have you. And so that is just directly run out on a separate audio output coming straight out of the laptop into my mixer. And that's on the first stereo channel. Now the second stereo channel is actually my game. And so this one's a little tricky. So what I wanted to do is independently split the game output from my desktop sounds. So my desktop sounds being alerts, Discord, music, basically anything else that's not the game. So what I've done in Windows is I've actually routed all of my game audio to be played over my monitor speakers. So what this means is that using the monitor as a second audio output device, I can take the auxiliary out of the monitor and pipe that into the second stereo channel on my mixer. Now this is completely independent of what's going on Streamlabs OBS, because in OBS, I'm still capturing that audio channel directly as an independent source. And we'll look at that in a little bit. But this gives me a way to separate desktop audio and game audio from my other PC audio and my microphone audio. Now I know not everybody likes spatial sound, but I like running Dolby Atmos. Now I'm actually able to put that on the audio output of my monitor and be able to listen to turn that on and off as needed per game, completely independent of what's going on in the desktop and any other audio feedback that I may actually be having. Now the desktop audio that I'm getting is actually the output of Streamlabs OBS, which is a little bit different than my actual desktop system sounds. I've actually split those out using virtual audio cables, and we'll touch on that when we get to the software side of things. But essentially what that allows me to do is take the combined volume of everything, but in OBS, I can actually turn on monitoring for some items, have other stuff only go to stream. And so that way I can keep the game audio completely separate from the output, and I have that coming into my third stereo input on my mixer. So looking at this diagram, this shows you a basic outline of exactly what I have happening. So the Yeti mic goes into the first microphone channel. The second PC is actually going into the first stereo bank. The game audio coming off of the monitor auxiliary output is going into my second stereo channel, and my default PC desktop sounds, or essentially the output of Streamlabs OBS, is going into my third stereo channel. From there, the output of that is solely going into my headphones. Now, the Yamaha MG10XU does have a USB output. So I do have the option, if I wanted to actually mix things live and use that as my stream audio. I know a lot of people do that way. Now I have thought about getting a second one that would have let me adjust everything through analog controls. So I would have exactly the setup that I have now for my monitoring, and then a second mixer essentially mirroring with split audio cables on the second mixer, but then that would feed back into OBS and I would be able to adjust things there. But the reality is I actually have a lot more control of what's happening on stream, doing that in software with different scene setups as well as different audio levels and what I'm routing where. So we're going to take a look at that now, starting with the virtual audio cable setup and how I have that configured. So you can see here, I can adjust my game audio to go direct to my monitor using Windows itself. So I can go down to advanced sound options. And if I expand this window out, you can see that each item actually shows the app, the volume, the output, as well as the input. And then here for Destiny, I've actually got that routed directly to one of my monitors. So here I've got this listed as my main monitor. You can also see here I've got options for default, my other virtual audio cables, the default speakers for the system. But I actually want this going direct to my monitor because I am using the auxiliary output to go into the mixer. And you'll see how we're able to bring that into Streamlabs. So for all the audio routing that I actually use on the computer, I use virtual audio cables. And many of you already know what virtual audio cables are. They're essentially a way to patch the output of one piece of software to the input of another piece of software. You know, in the real world, you'd literally have a cable and you'd have an output on a patch panel and an input, and you'd be routing those devices. But in computers, what we do is we actually have these virtual audio cables, which allow us to control where the sound is being sent to. For example, here's my virtual audio control panel. And so what we have here is you can see I've got 4 virtual audio cables set up. And this is what I'm using to route my filtered microphone audio, my desktop sounds, my music audio, as well as audio from Discord. Now I can add additional audio cables. This is a paid version, but there are free versions available. I'll have links to this software as well as an alternative free version of virtual audio cables in the description down below. Now, as I mentioned, the way I use my 4 virtual audio cables is the first one is for my system sounds. So my default Windows playback device is actually set to my first virtual audio cable, which is labeled as line 1. This directs essentially anything, alerts, anything that's actually going to happen on the desktop to that first line. I did this to keep the audio output of the motherboard clean so that I can use that to monitor what's coming out of Streamlabs OBS. Now, my second virtual audio cable is actually set up for the output of Adobe Audition. And for those of you who have Creative Cloud, you'll know that that is Adobe's audio mixing as well as recording suite of tools. And in a bit, I'll jump in to show you how I'm actually using Audition to do real-time audio noise reduction as well as gating compression filtering. The third virtual audio cable is actually set up for my music player, whatever it is that I'm using, whether it's like Spotify or Pretzel or something like that. So that actually goes in as a separate channel, and I can choose that in Streamlabs as line 3. Now my fourth virtual audio cable is actually set up for Discord, and I actually have that set up in a way in Streamlabs where I bring it in multiple times so that I can turn it on and off selectively per scene, but I can also leave monitoring on while having it not go out to stream depending upon the conversation if I don't want chat to necessarily be listening in to everything that's being said, or if I just kind of want to drown out that conversation for a second so I could talk directly to chat. Now let's dive into the software side of how I have Streamlabs configured so I could show you how all these audio devices from a software perspective are getting routed per scene and the types of control that I have. So looking at my Streamlabs setup, if we go into settings and I go to audio configuration, the only thing I have coming in is my line 1. This is my first virtual audio cable. So this is my desktop system sounds. That's being brought in as my default desktop audio device. Everything else I have in here is currently disabled. I don't have anything else coming in because for my Yeti mic, I'm actually routing that through Audition, and that's coming in on a virtual audio cable that I can include in separate scenes. And let's see what that looks like. So here we've got a desktop scene, and this is my main desktop capture. And under my sources, I have a folder that's labeled audio with my Audition microphone noise reduction, Discord, which is actually its own scene that's being brought in that has multiple inputs, my music, as well as my RAW audio is essentially, that is my game audio coming off of the monitor. So if I look at the properties for Audition, you can see that is actually set to line 2 of my virtual audio cable. My music is actually set to line 3, and RAW audio, this one's actually going to be my other audio source. And again, this is the one that we actually mapped in Windows itself. We didn't have to use a virtual audio cable for that because the virtual audio cables, while they do allow me to split the audio up within the system, they don't give me a separate output. And since I did want to adjust the game audio independently on my mixer, I am taking advantage of the audio output on the monitor to give me a second physical output to use in my mixer. Now, one benefit of doing it this way is that I don't have to include my microphone in every scene. For example, here, if I switch over to a Be Right Back scene, you can see all I have in here is music and Discord monitor. Now, Discord monitor only goes to what I'm listening to, but it does not go out to stream. You can see that Discord itself is not actually included in the mixer audio that is going out to all of my viewers. And this way I don't have to worry about muting microphone if I go to a Be Right Back screen. I just know if I'm on a Be Right Back screen, everything's shut down. This is the way I like it, because usually if I go to a Be Right Back, it usually means I'm having a side conversation with my wife or something like, or the dogs are barking or something else is going on that I actually want to just take a moment, take a break from stream, shut everything down, let chat listen to some music, and then I'll be back in a moment. Now let's actually look at Discord, and Discord is set up as its own scene. And this is where I was saying I'm doing something a little bit tricky here. So you can see I have both Discord monitor as well as Discord. Now both of these are actually set to virtual audio cable line 4. So if I look at Discord and I go to properties, these are identical. The difference is how I actually have them set up inside Streamlabs mixer. So if I open up the additional audio properties, you can see here Discord monitor is set up to monitor only. That means it doesn't go out to stream, but I can hear it as part of the system sounds. Now the Discord version is set up to monitor off. So that means this goes to stream, but I don't hear it. So I'm not hearing it twice. And you can see here, I actually have the Discord monitor is not included on any of the tracks. So while my track 1 is usually what's being recorded and going out, it's not included there at all. So literally anytime I include Discord monitor, that gives me the option to listen to what's going on in Discord completely independently of the audio that's going out to stream. Now I actually set this up as a separate scene because I could then just bring in Discord as its own little unit with both the monitor and Discord into other scenes. So if we go back to our desktop full with cam, you can see here, I've actually brought that scene in together. And inside my audio filters here, I have Discord monitor as well as Discord, and I can change those independently. Now, the nice thing is on my Stream Deck, I have a button that allows me to mute Discord for stream, and I can always still hear it. So I can just sit there and mute that. I can mute the Discord monitor as well. So I have a lot of options and a lot of flexibility doing this way. I actually really like having everything split up in the software because, like I said, each of my scenes includes different audio sources, and I don't have to worry about what's on, what's off, turning things on and off. I just know that when I'm in this scene, here's the available audio sources, and I have that already pre-programmed, pre-controlled, and I'm not worrying about it while I'm actually streaming. Now, I know there's other solutions out there, such as the GoXLR and the Elgato Wave3, that have software routing solutions. And we can talk about the benefits and the cost benefit analysis of that versus a system like I have. However, if you actually go into the mixer settings, and this is in both OBS as well as Streamlabs, there is a pretty well-defined mixer. Now, you do have volume settings. They're not on sliders. This is not tied to hardware, but you can define if this is being monitored only, what's being monitored, what tracks these are being applied to, if you're doing multi-track recording. So you do have a lot of control over your audio directly in your broadcasting software. So please keep that in mind when you're looking for these types of solutions. You know, having a mixer in the software for the GoXLR and the Wave, or if you're looking at Voicemeeter Banana, they offer a lot of similar overlapping functionality that you can actually get out of the box. Some of this does just come down to convenience versus performance. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was the fact that I use Adobe Audition to pre-filter all of my audio that is going into OBS. And so you can see here, I take the direct input from my Yeti microphone through the USB connection into my computer and send it out from Audition to line 2, which is my second virtual audio cable. And you can see here on the effects rack, I have dynamics processing, a parametric EQ, and a single band compressor. Now, one of the filters that I used to use that works very similar to RTX Voice is actually this adaptive noise reduction. Now, adaptive noise reduction doesn't use AI technology like RTX Voice does, but what it does is it looks for patterns in your sound. So it takes room tone and dynamically subtracts that from the audio that it's recording through the microphone. So it creates a clean recording. Now, with RTX voice, obviously, if a dog barks in the background, it's smart and it's going to remove that on the fly. Adaptive noise reduction isn't that aggressive, but overall, I found it to actually have less digital artifacting in the final output of the sound. That being said, that was all based off of testing when RTX voice was in beta. Since this recording, RTX Broadcast Studio is out, and I really would love to test RTX voice in its final form that is included with that software. Now, these effects that I'm using are very similar to the ones that you could use with VST plugins inside of OBS. My dynamics processing is essentially working as a gate, although I do have a sloped roll-off on it. I have a standard parametric EQ as well as a compressor. Now, the main reason that I'm doing this in Audition instead of using VST plugins, which would be much more convenient to just have it all running inside of OBS. For me personally, I just couldn't get the same quality sound that I was getting out of Audition. So for me, I decided to stick with filtering using Adobe Audition, which I know is running as an independent application, but in general, there's very little overhead on the CPU to do this. One thing to note though is there is a 60 millisecond delay coming out of Audition for the filtering. So I did add a render delay to my camera in OBS to keep everything in sync. So to wrap this up, I know nowadays there are alternatives to the type of setup that I have here. When I started streaming, things like the Elgato Wave3 or the GoXLR just didn't exist. That being said, using an analog mixer such as the MG10XU still definitely has a place in streaming. If you look at the price point between using an Elgato Wave3 setup, a GoXLR setup, or the analog setup that I have, let's start with the price point of what I have. So my Yeti was around $130. The Yamaha MG10XU was roughly $210. And I did pair that with a Stream Deck for some additional control. So that's an extra $150. Now, if you just start with just the mixer and the microphone, you're talking $340 basically to get a basic entry level to get the functionality I have here. You add on a Stream Deck to get some additional control over muting certain channels in OBS, or actually getting a soundboard control, because you can use the Stream Deck as a soundboard. That's an extra $150. So then you're in for about $490 US. Now, alternatively, you've got something like the Elgato Wave3, which is coming in at $160 right now. And that comes with the microphone and you get the digital mixing software. There is the mixer control and the routing board inside of OBS, but you do get additional functionality with that Wave3. And it does come with the virtual audio cable setup essentially and everything that you need to kind of do all of your routing. Now, if you want to add a Stream Deck to that, because their routing software is all fully controllable by the Stream Deck, add that $150, you're now talking $310. So $310 versus $490. The difference is when you're going with the Elgato Wave3, you are using the Stream Deck for controls. So there's no analog controls to actually reach over, dial things down. There's no faders. Essentially what you're doing is you're hitting buttons on your Stream Deck. That's fine, but there is something to be said for analog controls. And I actually really do like that. So that's where something like the GoXLR comes in. However, the GoXLR right now, if you tried to get one, they're $500 from Guitar Center back ordered. And the only one that I found available was roughly $710 on Amazon. And that doesn't include a microphone. So you need to get an XLR mic to actually use that, which is going to be, let's just say you spend $200 on an XLR mic. Now you're in for anywhere between $700 and $900. Now, granted, the GoXLR has basically every bell, whistle, and feature you would want to have, right? It's going to have digital mixer software. It's going to have analog faders. It has a built-in soundboard. You can use any mic you want. You're not tied to a microphone that they choose for you. But it does come with a high price tag. So in some ways is the middle of the road option. I actually think using the analog Yamaha mixer gives me the best of all worlds. You know, I get to choose the microphone that I want to use with the Yeti here. I have analog control over what I'm listening to. So again, I could just reach over, grab a knob and spin it down very quickly without having to dig through software. And then for the software control for what's going out on stream, I've got the Stream Deck to control the volume of the sources, as well as I have a built-in soundboard if I want to use it that way. Additionally, you know, for an extra $210, I can add another Yamaha mixer, and so I could have analog control of what's going to stream as well. So I would actually have up to 6 stereo channels, 8 mono channels, and be able to have those all independent of what I'm monitoring versus what is going out to stream. And the total cost there would be $700. So that ends up being just the cost of the GoXLR alone. So, you know, they all have their pros and their benefits. To be honest, in the future, if I do upgrade my mic to an XLR mic, I probably would go ahead and upgrade to a GoXLR as well, just for the additional bells and whistles and the convenience factor of it all. In the meantime, I really like my setup, and it's giving me the flexibility that I need on stream to do everything that I want to do right now. So hopefully I've been able to present an alternative way to configure audio for stream. I know a lot of people have been jumping on that Elgato Wave3 bandwagon. It is a fantastic microphone and a great piece of software, and it's something that I've been looking at heavily, especially at that price point. The GoXLR is expensive, but again, it comes with all the bells and whistles. So hopefully what I've shown you here is a hybrid model that may give you some alternative ways of thinking about how to configure your audio for stream. So if you like the content, let me hear about it in the comments below. If there was anything new that you hadn't thought of that was actually in the system, or if you have additional questions about how things are actually configured, let me know. Please remember to like and subscribe, because it does highly support the channel, and we will be creating more videos and content largely centered around technology and streaming and gaming, and just the PC community in general as the channel grows. So I appreciate your continued support. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.